Good morning and welcome to the latest episode of Ecomm Engine. Today we're going to be talking about selling smarter, not harder. My name is Nathan. I'm co-founder of Quickfire Digital, and today I'm delighted to be joined not just by one, but two very special guests. First of which is Rosie Bailey from Nibble. Good morning, Rosie.
Hi there. Hi, lovely to be here. Thank you very much.
Thank you for getting involved. And the second is Andre from Advanced Commerce. Good morning, Andre.
Hi, everyone.
Good to see you both. Folks, before we get started, just a very quick intro for those that haven't heard of Nibble and Advanced Commerce. I'd say, where the heck have you been? But Rosie, let's give them the opportunity to learn a little bit more. Tell us a little bit more about Nibble and the journey you've been on.
So Nibble was conceived in an Istanbul market in a bazaar, haggling over trainers. And my co-founder found the experience positive because he got a price that worked for him. There was a price that worked for the seller. It took a minute and it left with a smile on your face. And that really is the principle behind Nibble. So it's a chatbot negotiation that agrees a deal. Many of our clients initially say, well, it sounds clever, but why would I need it? And most of our clients are using us for subtle deals to VIP customers, or to clear stock without going on general promotion, or in B2B marketplace where negotiation on contracts or bulk purchases is quite normal. It allows you to treat every customer as an individual, right down to price.
Rosie, I love that. And I've got a question for you, and forgive my naivety here, but when I went to Tunisia and you used to be able to barter and haggle, etc., and that's like part of the excitement of going shopping out there, are you able to do it based on intent? And the reason I ask is that when you're in an offline world, a lot of the times you're walking out the store and they're like, wait, before you go.
After you, right?
And you're like, hell, let me go. Can you target the comms based on intent, e.g. about to exit, etc., or not? How does that bit work?
So we try and get the abandoned basket before it's abandoned. So some of our clients use us on a dwell time or revisit. So tents is a really great example. You're buying a tent for a camping trip. It's a highly considered purchase. You spend a lot of time flicking between that one. So you visit the product page several times, and they did some research with their agency, some proper detailed CRO research, and they found that on average, people visit between 4 and 6 times before making a purchase decision. But after 6 times, the drop-off was really, really significant. So they put Nibble on the 4th page revisit. So if you bought that tent on the first 3 visits, you bought it full price, you didn't see Nibble. But if you came on the 4th visit, Nibble came in and said, would you like to negotiate a small discount? And the majority of our customers use us for a sub 10% discount. And it really is a nudge to get somebody over the line when they're looking undecided. So we measure intent to the extent that it's a page revisit or a dwell time.
That's super cool. Thank you. Andre, what about yourself? So tell us a little bit more about Advanced Commerce.
Sure. So Advanced Commerce, we are a merchandising platform. That means we plug into your e-commerce site and take over your site search, your category pages, and any product recommendation zones that you might have. And the reason to do that is to give you much better tools to control the merchandising on that part of the site. And merchandising really is all about controlling the product display sequence. And I guess we'll talk a little bit more about this when we get to the questions.
And Andre, one of the questions or the kind of analogies that Paul always uses is something like a deck of cards. Are you familiar with that analogy he uses?
Yeah, no, he nicked it from me.
Yeah, just tell us that one, because I'll always love that kind of analogy.
So the analogy is this, and we'll all recognize this from our own browsing behavior. Your typical site visitor just looks at a few pages, if that, and typically they're seeing 3% or less of your product catalog. So the other 97% of your product catalog remains hidden every time somebody comes to visit your site. And the analogy is, imagine your entire product catalog could be represented by a deck of cards. How many cards are people looking at? And I won't make you do the maths, but 3% of 52 is less than 2 cards. So then just to stretch the analogy a bit, we pick up the first 2 cards and I show 2. I say, so what are you showing? And the first 2 cards are 2 2s. Then the second 2 cards are 2 jokers. And then the third 2 cards are 2 kings. But I mean, in actual fact, even that is wrong, because for some visitors, the two twos would have been the right thing to show. So it's all about understanding that you've only got a very small parameter in which to show products, and you need to make sure that you know very clearly what are the products you want to show.
Very good. And I'm going to have a word with Paul Kelson because he's been using that as his own for a long time, Andre. And I'm going to say, actually, this is
That's fine.
Andre's IP.
No, it's fine. I don't mind.
What did they say? Imitation is the greatest form of
Oh,
flattery.
Exactly. I'm very
right.
flattered.
So, Rosie, I just got a question for you. I mean, I'm just thinking about this out loud here, and I'm thinking like in the context of like the furniture world. It's got some 2 or 3 brands now in the furniture space. What strategies could be employed to effectively clear like excess stock without resorting to big discounting? Because that's a problem I see, particularly with you look at something like DFS. They've got like a constant sale on. Like, how do you shift larger items in that kind of world potentially with something like Nibble?
So I think the first thing you've got to acknowledge is many of these big brands have trained the market, and it's very unfortunate, but they've trained the market to expect a deal. And in a way, that's a shame for e-commerce brands trying to set store by their brand values. But in a way, it's been true for years, right? Like, and actually, if you go into a big furniture chain or a big consumer electricals chain, even in the UK, but particularly in other countries like Canada or Greece or Brazil, you can negotiate with a store associate. They've got £20, $30 that they can give you. And so actually what you're doing is you're aping the online experience is then allowed to ape the offline experience. So for some of our clients, they might have more stock to clear than they can clear in one clearance event, right? Like, let's say it's a new management, they've taken over, they want to reposition the business, their warehouse has £1 million worth of stock, or it's seasonal stock, right? It's garden furniture, not winter furniture. And they find that if they put them in a clearance section, in an outlet section, then it will take too long to clear and it won't have the engagement. So if you put Nibble on that, you can put a small headline discount, like let's say 10% off, and then Nibble can negotiate a further 5%. And that negotiation, and it's all lodged in behavioral science, is hugely engaging. So it does two things. It increases your conversion, but it also increases your margin because the net discount you've agreed is much, much lower than the, 70% off everything to clear the stock. So normally headline discount and then a small extra deal with Nibble. So it feels very much like that human to human experience you would have in the store.
And Rosie, question, is there a particular product set or category or sector where Nibble perhaps isn't right? So for example, if the AOV is less than £100, for example.
It works better on higher AOV items, or if it's lower AOV items, a bundle. So higher AOV items like $100 up.
Yeah.
Or if you're selling, we do actually work quite well on personal care and beauty brands, but only if you put several things together and you're talking about maybe £50. And at the end of the day, the person needs to feel like their time wasn't wasted. And actually, there's lots of research on this. Your time is actually proportionate to your earning power. And so if you waste, and it takes a minute to do a negotiation with Nibble. And so if you see that as time you've invested, you probably want to get at least £1, $1, a couple of pounds back. So actually, that's more important than the AOV. It's the quantum in pounds or dollars that you negotiate off is the most important thing. So if you've got a very low AOV, but you're willing to give 20% off, fine. But we tend to find our clients have high AOV items with very, very small percentages.
And question, Rosie, I'm just thinking this through. Is the bot able to negotiate to upsell to the set, or is the bot purely saying, now you've got the set, now we can give you a bit of a discount? So does the cart content have to be said set, or can it be 2 of the 3 and it says you might want to think of the third to get the set?
It does. It can do the upsell.
Nice.
We're getting a little bit techie now because it slightly depends on your setup.
Yeah.
But we have beauty brands. We have one of our clients is in the wellness space and they're on Shopify, and they sell through third parties, through Boots and through supermarkets and so on and so forth. And of course, that's huge volume for them. But if someone comes direct to their consumer website, they make much better margins. And they've set it up that if somebody adds one item to the cart on their D2C website, Nibble comes in from the side and says, add 2 more items and we can negotiate a deal. And there's a carousel in the chat of things to choose from. Works really nicely for them. For very complex upsells, it probably is not so straightforward.
I really like your point there around time versus earning power.
Mm.
And Andre,
There's a big paper on it, actually.
yeah, well,
Yeah.
I'm going super left field here that Andre has kind of invested stacks and stacks of time into a business, which was Attract, which he's then sold. And then suddenly he's going again and he's doing it a second time. And I mean, apart from the most forgiving and supportive family around, tell us, Andre, what made you decide to do this again?
Well, you won't be surprised to hear that, you know, I'm often asked that question. Why are you doing it? I mean, I suppose the reality is that I felt I had more to give in this. I did actually try and do something else originally. I was looking at building out a framework for headless commerce, but felt that was very much a kind of enterprise space and kind of pivoted back to search and merch. I suppose the other thing I would say is, you know, it's not often in life you get the chance to do something a second time. And in that respect, I feel very fortunate. And generally, when you do something a second time, you tend to do it better, don't you? And that's usually because of the experience you had first time round. It's like you've learnt the lessons the hard way. So when I say I felt I had more to offer, I think that was really having had a lot of time to think about how would I do things differently second time around.
Yeah, nice. And I guess, Andre, just building on that, a lot of people are talking about AI and
Yeah,
AI being the future. I mean, in terms of AI itself, how does this work when it comes to merchandising? Is there a conflict between kind of data-driven personalization and rules-driven merchandising? Or I'm just really keen to understand how you guys are kind of embracing AI without letting AI dictate the whole
sure. Yeah, I mean, it's a good question. You know, we use AI primarily in our platform to deliver a personalized sequence of the same page to every single visitor. And, you know, you need the sort of power of AI to be able to do all that kind of stuff in real time. But yes, there is a potential for conflict if you rely solely on AI. And the conflict is this really, that, you know, talk to a merchandiser and they'll say, look, our job is to express the brand's DNA on the website. And we primarily do that through telling brand stories or brand narrative and through the way that we curate the site. And obviously curation comes down to product sequencing. And the problem with it being purely AI is it might be technically accurate, but it can just look a bit poor. And that's what will be of concern to any kind of merchandiser. And really what we've found seems to work better as a kind of blended approach. So where you actually blend AI with rules-based merchandising, and it's like you're giving the merchandiser, they've still got control over the AI. And this might be a bad analogy, but you know, if you think of, you know, like a point and click camera, you know, a lot of people just leave it on the green auto setting, don't they? But actually there is a setting for sports, and there's a setting for portrait, and a setting for landscape, and there's a setting for nighttime photography and so on. And it's kind of controlling the use of AI, so it's not just on that green auto setting.
That's a nice way of putting it. Thank
Thank
you.
you.
I like that.
Yeah.
I think I'm going to
Yeah,
steal that one.
I might use that one.
I'm sure
I mean,
Paul's already used
yeah,
it
I
a
was
few
going to
times.
say, I could have sworn I've heard that. Old Paul using it in his normal vocabulary. Just as a bit of housekeeping, for anyone listening in, if you do have any questions, please do ask as we go. I've got a ton of questions to ask, but I also want to give you guys the chance to ask as well. It's a rare opportunity to get Andre and Rosie on the same call, so please do ask away as we go. Rosie, we talked a little bit there around AI, and I'd be keen to see from your experience, what AI or chatbot apps have you found to boost ecom engagement and sales?
First things first, can I respond to something Andre
You
said?
can respond,
Just because it made me think, it's the idea that not letting AI be in control. And I think the one thing that I haven't seen enough merchants ask me, because we have AI embedded in Nibble, is how exactly does it work, and which bits are predictable and which bits are not predictable. And I think that's to me the key about using AI is if you're not sure, say, well, is this predictable or is this probabilistic, right? Like, because large language models probably give you the right answer, but don't definitely give you the right answer. And then other more perhaps old-fashioned forms of AI technology are deterministic, right? As in there's an algorithm and A to B delivers C. So I don't know, it's just a bit my high horse that you can embed these things. And so then that brings me on to what applications and what use cases have I seen. I've actually seen an increasing number of use cases in what I would call the boring end of e-commerce, and making your back end solutions work really, really well. And one of the best examples I heard was Paul Wilkinson from Deliveroo was delivering a talk, and he explained that at Deliveroo they were using LLMs, so probabilistic models that will probably get the right answer, to fill in data gaps. So apparently when a driver drops off a Deliveroo delivery, they have to fill in some data about that delivery, because Deliveroo is all about optimizing that delivery. What was the best route? How many boxes can be filled with this delivery? Do I need 2 drivers? And is there any way to pack it more sensibly with 1 driver, and so on and so forth? And apparently they couldn't get all the data because maybe the driver was too busy to fill in all the details. And so if the size of 6 cans of Coca-Cola wasn't filled in, they could use a ChatGPT to say, could you estimate how big 6 cans of Coca-Cola is? And ChatGPT is reasonably accurate at that kind of thing. And anyway, reasonably accurate data is better than no data when it comes to the further optimization, the algorithms they want to run off that database. And so actually filling in the gaps in your data to then try and run your improvement models, I thought was a really interesting use case where it won't always be perfect, but imperfect information is better than no information. But the counter goes when you've got something talking to your customers, so Nibble talks directly to your customers, then you can't have something that is probably right. It's got to be definitely right.
Can't make it up as it goes along.
I don't know if anyone saw, but there was one over the weekend, like Google released a new LLM version of chat, and it said, somebody typed, is it safe to leave a dog in a hot car? And then the ChatGPT, it's always safe to leave a dog in a hot car, and the temperature in the car always stays lower than the temperature outside. And in fact, the Beatles wrote a famous song about this. It's safe to leave your dog in the car. Woo-hoo. And it was just like completely fabricated. And I would say that is a situation where I wouldn't use LLMs.
So this is interesting. It's prompted another thought, actually, which is kind of why are people using AI? So I think the examples you've given are very practical solutions.
Practical, right?
So I think one of the issues with the AI is it's kind of retrospective. It's relying on these large language models to make predictions. I don't think it's very good at genuinely innovative thinking. And just to give what might be a bad example or a bad thing is, imagine we tried to do X Factor using AI. What would that look like? We'll build a language model, wouldn't we, that says we know what a boy band looks like. There's always 5 of them. They've always got silly haircuts. They always pout. One wears a long leather jacket, a long leather coat, rather. We know what a girl band looks like. We know what a female singer looks like. Blah blah blah. So what happens when a young Freddie Mercury turns up? Computer says no, right? Because it doesn't fit into the model. So I think often with AI, the sort of question I would pose to a retailer is, do you want to be a trendsetter or do you want to be an order taker? Because AI will help you be an order taker, but it probably won't help you be a trendsetter, because it won't be able to think forward of what would a new Freddie Mercury type person
But then I
be.
know lots of retailers who'd like to be an order taker, right?
Well, that's it. And I think that a
Like
lot of
you
this
make more money that way, right? So
Well,
you
but
a lot
answer
of this
delivery
is,
costs, delivery inquiries, you
yeah,
answer them at scale.
I think the problem with being an order taker, though, is generally it leads to a race to the bottom on price. And back to the thing about merchandisers wanting to promote their brand. Why do people care about the brand? Well, it's because it helps them sell things at a higher price. Do you know what I mean? And that would be my caution. If you want to be an order taker, it could just be a race to the bottom on price. There we go,
I think
Nathan.
that maybe
well,
that's quite interesting. And you probably do a lot more in fashion than we do, but in B2B, for example, it's quite interesting. Sort of in a D2C world, maybe 80% of the people who buy today won't ever revisit your website, right? But it's the 80-20 flips on its head in B2B. And so then you're trying to get somebody to keep coming back, right? And then it's things about consistency of delivery or availability of answering questions or clear product details, right down to all of the widget measurements and the compatibility, and it's very much more complicated. So I'm still optimistic that it's not just about price or brand. I think there are more ways of competing than that, but it is to do with trust. And so there are other ways of delivering value, I think.
this is my kind of webinar. I'm not needed here. I can
I
just
like
you
Andre
guys.
and I would politely disagree over things, right?
Just
I
quickly,
didn't think we were disagreeing, actually. So.
You've both made some brilliant points there. We've had a question coming from Hanny. So for anyone that doesn't know, Hanny runs Superior Ecomm, a fantastic development partner of big commerce Shopline, and I believe they're doing some stuff in Shopify as well. Really nice chap. And he's got a question for you, Rosie, which is, do you have any figures on drop rate once Nibble is engaged with a user?
Yes. So if somebody starts a conversation with Nibble, in approximately 42% of situations last week, Nibble agrees a deal at the end of that. So Nibble's rate of starting a conversation to getting to an agreed deal is extremely high. And that's because we work with a professor of negotiation from London Business School. And we're frankly just really good at negotiation. And that's what we care about. And we're very nerdy about it. And I'm very nerdy about it in real life as well, right? Like it's the same techniques. Secondly, there is another drop point, right? So after you've agreed a deal, it depends whether you check out or not. And our best retailers, it's usually 1 in 2 checkout, and our worst is 1 in 10. Where it's 1 in 10, it's where the price of the item is a really, really important factor to the purchase decision. So I give you an example. In a luxury handbag for over $1,000, and it's a unique item, it's one of a kind, the price you can negotiate the bot to is a significant part of your purchase decision. Whereas when this is a similar item or the same item, and there are lots of them on the website, and you get a 5% off and you just move on, then our convert rate from agreement to basket is much, much higher. But usually it's much more dependent on the website and the type of promotion they're running than it is on the Nibble experience.
Thank you, Hanny. Great question. Thank you. And please do connect with Rosie and Andre afterwards. I'm sure they'll be happy to go through any more questions. Rosie, I just want to come back to you here. If we dive into a sector, looking at some of the people signed up, there's a fair few in the beauty and cosmetic space. And so I just wanted to understand from you, let's take that as a category or a vertical. And let's just say, okay, in terms of personalizing that online shopping experience and increasing customer satisfaction and perhaps retention, what strategies have you seen proven effective for beauty brands when it comes to AI implementing these kind of strategies?
So I think this is another one, like Andre says, that the race to the bottom is too easy to join. And you've got some very aggressive marketplaces in the beauty industry where, you get new customers, right? They try new things on the marketplace and then they might come to you as a D2C. So I think you need to be quite careful of that. When we deploy Nibble in that space, it's almost always as a bundling tool. So almost always to reward your loyal customers who are coming direct to your brand website and saying, I know you like this item, but if you add 2 more, you can negotiate a discount. And the advantage there is usually average order value goes up at least 50% and discounts drop by half. So that's sort of the way we deal with it. The other way that I've seen really, really effective campaigns is focusing on one item in your collection So let's say you're a color cosmetics brand, you focus on eyes this month. You mirror it with some really, really great influencer content. And then you talk uniquely about that item through a very content-led campaign. That item is probably your leading item on your website and may well have a small discount attached to it. But what I've seen there is where the content is really, really good. The next month, when the campaign stops, that item still sells and people don't demand a discount. They realize they've missed it. Do you see what I mean? You sort of say, this is eyes month and I get discounts on eyes products. Next month, when you're replenishing your shadow, then you still want to do it because the content's so great.
Very good. And Andre, just building on that, I mean, would you guys say that fashion and apparel is the leading brand type that you would see with advanced commerce? And if so, do you have many people in beauties and cosmetics? And if you do, what would be your top tip to them?
Sure. So we've recently just gone live, or I think about to go live with Tropic Skincare. So they'll be our first beauty brand. Yeah, I mean, our kind of absolute sweet spot is fashion or apparel. And the reason for that is anybody involved in those industries has been trained in merchandising. So, we are the only platform designed for merchandisers so that they get it and they love it. We've also done very well, though, with homeware and also with department stores. And I think the reason for that is both of those retailers tend to have a very broad catalogue. Each category may not be that deep, but they have lots of them. And it makes it very, very difficult to merchandise that manually. So I think that's why we've done well with those in addition to fashion apparel. I think the thing with beauty, I mean, it's very different, isn't it, from fashion? It tends to be much lower price points. It can be more frequently purchased. And I mean, they say that people go to beauty when times are tough because, it's cheap. You can buy a lipstick for a tenner, but versus what you might spend on clothes and so on. So it is an interesting area. What would I advise them? I mean, I think truthfully, because it's new to us, I'm not sure we've built up a picture yet of how to merchandise beauty. So I'm going to cop out a bit and actually not answer that question.
I'm going to come straight back to you with, we often talk about product sequencing being a retailer's
Yeah.
secret weapon.
Yeah.
What do you mean? What do you mean by this? And outside of beauty and cosmetics,
Yeah.
for those that are listening that also believe that product sequencing can be their secret weapon, what do you really mean by this statement?
Sure. So it's back to the analogy of the
Of
deck
Paul's
of
playing
cards.
cards? Yeah.
Yeah. So once you know that your average visitor is only going to look at 3% of your catalog, the other 97% remain hidden. It makes the decisions that you take about product sequencing, or some people call it the edit or curation or prioritization, but whatever you want to call it, it makes the decisions about what you're going to show first on category pages, search results pages, and any product recommendation zones you've got. It makes those decisions absolutely critical. And if you get it right, it tends to boost your conversion rate and boost your average order value. But outside of fashion, a lot of people aren't really aware of it. And that's why I say it's your secret weapon, because a lot of people don't know, but it is very effective if you get it right.
Very good. Rosie, I'm going to come back to you, and I guess my concern, or many retailers' concerns, is going to be preserving margins. And we did an Ecomm Engine episode with Conjura, and we've done some others with Thomas Gleason, Store Hero, and contribution margin and profitability have come up time and time again. So I guess my question for you, what are the key considerations that we need to think about when we're introducing negotiating to make sure that, yes, we improve conversion rates, but we also protect margin?
Yeah. So it's all about, we call it anchoring, and it's a negotiation technique. And this is like free negotiation technique skills training, right? Like this works in real life. If you're trying to get a pay rise today, anchor, like crazy anchor if you're buying a new house. And what anchoring means is it means the conversation you need to try and have the conversation around an area that you're happy to do a deal. So the idea being is, if you can go first, you can anchor that conversation around an area you're happy to do a deal, and all the subsequent conversation is about the other side trying to drag you towards where they want to get a deal done, right? But you're controlling that anchor. And so in negotiation, it's usually the best way to do that is to go first. And so that's what we do with Nibble. And some of our customers, when they first see it, our retailers, they think that's a little surprising, because Nibble basically opens the conversation saying, I know it's listed for 100, but if I could get it down to 95, would that work for you? And retailers have been taught time and time and time again, keep your prices solid, do not give discounts, preserve your brand. However, what happens then is they hold out and they hold out and they hold out, and then they go 70% off. and that is a disaster for your margins. Whereas actually, when we have the conversation between 100 and 95, immediately the customer goes, oh, we're talking about very small discounts here. We're not talking about deep discounts. And so if they get you down to 94 or 93, they still feel like they've really won, and that's been a great deal for them. But you're not talking about this 70% off. And so in consumer electronics for the Q1 2024, we did the analysis, and people on average were asking, initial discounts they requested were 26% off. And the agreed discount on average that Nibble got to was 6%. So you're talking about that. The value to margin of getting the negotiation anchored rate was 20% in that sector. And I've got that data sector by sector. So if anyone on the call wants to know what it is for their sector, I can give it to them. But it's the value of having a conversation, and somebody's bothered to come to your website, right? They like your products, they're interested. So in that conversation, you reiterate the values of the product and the brand and the trust and all the things that Andre was talking about. And then you anchor it around a very modest discount, not a deep.
That's super cool. Thank you. I just want to come back to you, Rosie, just in terms of the concept of clear comms in today's society and building trust. And what I want to know is, how do you believe that retailers listening today or listening to this back can really adopt this more open, proactive communication to try and get an edge in what is becoming increasingly competitive? How can retailers really get ahead of this?
I mean, to be honest, if I was an alien and I started my business and I was choosing a place on the world to start my business, the UK would not be it, but my kids are at school here. So here I am. But I've got a really lovely client in India. They've been a supporter of what we do for the last 2 years. And I said to them, you know, in England, people are a little worried about negotiating. Some people are afraid to negotiate. They think it might make them look weak. And they're worried about the conflict. And she goes to me, she's like, Rosie, but if I didn't negotiate at the point of sale, how would I get to know what my customer really wants? And she was so confused by this unwillingness to have that conversation, right? And of course, you can have that conversation on a customer success basis, but I can tell you that the minute you have a conversation that involves the price as well, the engagement you get from the shopper is second to none, right? Like people are highly engaged. They say things like, this bottle of gin, I can't pay full price because it's a gift from my mother-in-law. You must be joking if I'll give her a full price gift. They really wrote it. They really wrote it. But you know, like, or on fishing tackle, we were selling some high-end fishing rods, and the guy, probably a guy negotiating, was like, come on, you've got to give me a discount, Nibble, or my wife will kill me.
I would love to go through some of the transcripts.
Oh God, they're brilliant. They're brilliant. I mean, you know, we did, and that's the point. And if you can make your shopper smile as they buy, what's the chances they come back? Pretty high, right?
Yeah, that's nice. I guess, folks, I really appreciate your time today. Just looking to summarize today's call and wrap it up, I'm really keen to see both of your takes in terms of the remainder of 2024 and going into 2025. What do we think this holds for the outlook in retail as a whole? I mean, it's been a turbulent 18 months, if not longer. Where do we think we're heading, and do we think there's light on the horizon? And perhaps, Andre, I'll start with you, and then I'll come to Rosie as we look to wrap up today's session.
Well, first of all, it's still tough going out there, isn't it? But I do think things will start to improve this year. Certainly, the direction of travel is right in terms of inflation. That's nearly back down to 2%, and interest rates, I think, will continue to fall. I think we'll also get an election bounce. That normally happens every time there's an election, which hopefully will mean a return to some consumer confidence, and I think that will start to accelerate during 2025. But what do I know? All of which also assumes there are no big external shocks out there. And I think, if there is a lesson from the last 2 or 3 years, it's, something external come along and kill it for you.
Yeah, good share. And Rosie, how about yourself?
Yeah, I think, look, the macroeconomic, Andre's completely right. And he was very carefully danced around the general election without getting political, which I was very impressed.
I'll just hang up the call if anyone gets political.
Eject. So I couldn't disagree with the macroeconomic outlook has got to be getting a little bit better. I think the thing that I'm seeing, I mean, we invented a chatbot before ChatGPT was a thing, and our world is just turning upside down every week, every day. So that's maybe a very personal view in maybe the sort of more technologically kind of frontier areas. But I think what it is translating into is consumer behavior is changing faster than it's ever been. So certainly through the eyes of my clients, I'm seeing the numbers change week to week much more dramatically than maybe I would have seen a year ago. And so whilst I think the glide path is there and you can set a strategy for that glide path, I think you need to acknowledge that your customer behavior may change and the way they want to interact with you and what they expect from you, their expectations are very high. And so things like your customer service expectations and those sorts of things, I think are going to continue to be increasingly challenging. I think what worked last year is not acceptable this year. I bought something this weekend and I got 10 delivery confirmation emails. 10 identical. Oh. And it just completely diminished my trust that this thing will even remotely arrive on time. Do you know what I mean? And it's those sorts of mistakes that means that I probably, even if the stuff arrives and it's fine, I will be very reticent to buy again from that brand. And isn't that mean of me in a way, right? A small thing, but it just shows that they're not communicating with me in a transparent and easy way.
Very good. Folks, if people want to find out more, Andre, let's start with you at Advanced Commerce. If people want to find more about you, Advanced Commerce, etc., where are we signposting them to?
Yeah, so advancedcommerce.io, or they can find me on LinkedIn, or they're very happy to email me at andre@advancedcommerce.io.
Thank you. And Rosie, same for you.
We're very active on LinkedIn. It's probably the easiest way to find me. And you're probably logged into this webinar via LinkedIn. So Rosie Bailey at Nibble. And if you're curious about how it works, we've got a really great detailed page on how the chatbot works at nibbletechnology.com.
Very good. Andre, Rosie, massive thank you for joining me today. Thank you guys for tuning in. I hope you've enjoyed it. We look forward to seeing you very soon for the next episode of Ecomm Engine. But for now, enjoy the rest of your day. Thank you both.
Cheers, guys.
Thank you very much. It's been really great.
Bye.